Let's go to Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. He knows something about heat. Joins us right now out of the nation's capital. But I am curious, Senator, what you make of the dilemma that Californians are in right now, because this is the same state that by 2035 wants to ban all, gas-powered car sales, and by then, hopefully, they say, have everyone be, tooling around in these fancy schmancy and often expensive electric vehicles. But the grid can't handle it. And already the governor himself is advising those with EVs to cool it on charging them. What do you make of that?
Yeah, Neil, I think you're absolutely right. They don't have the grid, and it's unclear that they will have the grid by then. In 2035, 13 years, they're going to have to permit and finance a tremendous amount of expansion in a state which in many areas is incredibly densely populated and which has many challenges to permitting. Not in my backyard is a very strong phenomenon in California. It brings to mind Steve Jobs' old quote that aspiration without implementation is hallucination, and you're wondering if some of those lawmakers aren't hallucinating.
You know, it does get back to a basic issue about the reliability of our grid, even taking EVs and charging them through utilities out of the equation. We can barely keep up with things now. This has sporadically popped up in a number of states, even Texas a couple of winters ago. I'm just wondering when this thing really explodes.
To your point, it isn't that you need enough electricity to meet your demand or future demand. You need redundancy on top of that. And so California has to increase both the amount that they have for what they predict, but then go a little bit more. Right now, they're relying upon electricity imported from other states. What happens when those other states begin to put in EVs and have to keep their electricity in their state? I think the demand upon California is going to be huge, and I think it makes you have to say stop. Let's think about these plans. Let's see if we can implement, and then let's do them at a pace at which we can implement.
You know, Senator Cassidy, while I have you here, and I was just talking about this with Kayla McGee-White over at the Washington Examiner, this focus on former President Trump and the documents taken from his home, apparently a lot more than we earlier thought. I'll get into that later, sir. You're probably up on it more than I am. But that the fixation with constantly getting into this, whatever the justification, has a number of Republicans worried that there's no talk of the economy, no talk of what's happening to our grid, to your point, what's going on with inflation, and that this is sucking up all the proverbial oxygen in the room. Do you agree with that?
I think there is a danger of that. The press is obviously hyper-focused upon Mar-a-Lago. Last night, President Biden made a speech as head of state, which was incredibly partisan and was really that which is a political leader of a certain party. And that Mar-a-Lago parade allowed him to do so. And if you will, it's a shell game. Don't look at the issues before us. An out-of-control border associated not just with people, but fentanyl coming across our border. Inflation, which although easing is still terrible. The price of natural gas and therefore utilities continues to climb. And then crime itself. He's able to divert from that to speak about Mar-a-Lago, and frankly, the press goes along with him.
That so do a lot of your fellow Republicans in defending him, right? Maybe with the best of intentions, but also keeping the conversation going.
I think we got to talk about the issues before that kitchen table. And if we talk about real solutions to those issues, critique them, but offer our own solutions, we win. If we're talking about something else, they're setting the agenda.
Real quickly on that very point, Senator, the president has just told our own Peter Doocy, quote, "I don't consider any Trump supporters a threat to the country." Now, the tone of his speech last night, to your earlier point, was anything but. It sounds like he or people around him regret those remarks. What do you think?
I don't think they regret it at all. He's just given some after-the-fact cover. They are trying to change the narrative away from the economy, away from crime, away from the border. This is part of their tactic, and then later on they do a do-over. No, they're trying to set the narrative. We need folks, properly concerned about what's before them, about the kitchen table issues, about the border. If that, then our country will be in a better direction, because frankly, I think Republicans will win.
All right, but you said that they might endorse those remarks no matter what he's saying. That's still alienating half the country. You think they're okay with that?
Yeah, I think they're probably okay with that. They know they have to get their base energized. And he wasn't speaking last night as head of state or as president. He was speaking as a partisan political leader.
That's why none of the broadcast networks covered that speech. Senator Cassidy, good seeing you. Have a safe weekend.
You too, Neil.
Senator Cassidy.